Hey y'all, I'm Teraj.
And I'm Barry.
And we're making it with pride in Great Britain. So this trip was super exciting because it's London's 50th anniversary since their first Stonewall, and I was invited to be one of the headliners.
This year's Pride Parade was extra special because they didn't have any in-person celebrations for 3 years.
So we're super fortunate to partner with Visit Britain, who showed us everything that both London and Brighton had to offer. We had the opportunity to learn so much about the local LGBTQ plus community and the diverse array of cultures spread out throughout the city of London and Brighton.
I'd only have myself to blame. Can't continue in this cycle and not
Upon our arrival, we quickly dropped off our bags at the other house and went out to check out the Kensington Gardens, sightsee around the city, and we checked out the V&A Museum. So for our stay at the other house, it was so awesome because we were the very first guests to ever stay at this hotel before its official opening, which was happening in tandem with Pride.
After a day of walking around, we stopped in for afternoon tea and supper at the Ampersand.
We were treated to something that was called the Science Afternoon Tea, and it was just this beautiful spectacle. So we started the next day by taking a trip over to the Coal Drops Yard, which was so beautiful, expansive, and there we had lunch before we went to explore the Queer Britain Museum.
Queer Britain is a museum of British LGBTQ history and culture. It is actually the first dedicated queer museum in the UK. And it was amazing to see the history and the culture that they had in the city.
And it also showcased a lot of LGBTQ plus artists that are local to the community as well. And one of their major aims to have a rotating exhibition of LGBTQ plus artists. So every time you go to this museum, you see something new. One of my favorite experiences was the Tally-Ho bike ride because we were able to tour a few London neighborhoods on bikes with a few stops where we actually learned about the history of gin in London while tasting a few varieties.
You were able to see the neighborhood on bikes, and one of the favorite things that we went to was the Vaults, which is a tunnel filled with graffiti. And the cool thing was that they actually brought out a spray can so that you can make and leave your own mark in London.
And I have to say, what made this experience super special were the hosts themselves, who were part of the community. They had such vibrant personalities and the most interesting of facts, and they just made everything super amazing. So the next day we took a train over to East London and we checked in at the Hart Shoreditch, which is a super awesome curio collection hotel in a prime location just a few minutes away from the Tube and a bunch of East London's nightlife.
The next day we went on the Thames Rocket on the river, and it was just amazing to see the city from a different perspective. It starts off really slow, and once you get out of the downtown area, it speeds up.
This boat definitely tilted at certain points way past the 45-degree line, and this is an experience that's totally not for the faint of heart. And I did my best not to scream to preserve my voice because I had to hit the stage the next day. Next up was the London Eye with its VIP deck and pub pod.
And it was decked out in 1950s decoration in honor of the Queen's Jubilee.
Now this was a one-of-one experience in London, and it was so much fun taking everything in and what seemed like infinite views of the city. Now our pod was complete with a bartender and must-have decor for content creators to get that Instagram content. So that night we got our first taste of the LGBTQ plus scene in East London, and we had the chance to meet the local icon Aisha, who everyone calls the Queen of East London, and she shared her personal stories and perspective of being an LGBTQ plus person of color.
I think it's time that we all come together so that we could be part of that change. And, you can't do anything alone. You need allies, you need different parts of our community to truly understand what is needed so that we can bring about that change.
We checked out the Glass House, which was super cool because it basically is a hub for the LGBTQ plus community with so many different components, such as a bar, a bookstore. Downstairs, there's a recording studio where creators can come in and record podcasts. And there's just so many things that they do in terms of philanthropy and charity for the community as well. So next up, we checked out the Working Men's Club over in the historic Bethnal Green. Basically, this was like a school that was converted into this nightclub. So it's very speakeasy style. You walk in, you go through these doors, and then it opens up into this super grand space.
And when the doors opened, it was like a scene from a movie. The show was amazing. The drag queen was hilarious.
We had such a great time. So the big day has finally arrived, and we started off our day by going to pick up our media passes, where we had the opportunity to meet the incredible cast of Heartstoppers.
Happy Friday, London!
We are huge fans of that show because we just binged it a couple of months before, so it was great to be able to meet them in person and get some photos and videos.
So it was incredible experiencing this because this Pride celebration was so different from anything that I've experienced before. Like, it was so vibrant, it was so spacious. The crowds, like, you would not believe how many people were out there for this particular celebration.
The coolest part for me was that the parade was led by the veterans from the first march in 1972.
It was finally time to hit that stage, and I can't even describe the emotions and the feelings that was just going through my body at that point. And I just knew that this was going to be something so special.
Don't be afraid to show these colors of freedom.
I can tell that everyone was enjoying the performance.
The theme for this year was so special, #AllOurPride, which really focused on the theme of inclusivity. That no matter who you are, how you love, where you come from, how you identify, this Pride is literally for all of us. Thank you to Pride in London for this amazing opportunity. So after all of the Pride celebrations, the next day we took a train up to Brighton, which is considered basically the LGBTQ plus haven of all of UK. When we started walking around, we saw that we were in the midst of so many different types of LGBTQ plus bars, karaoke spots, restaurants. It was an incredible LGBTQ plus haven.
I was amazed by how many LGBTQ bars and restaurants there were. Teraj and I made our way down to the beach, and the interesting thing is it's not a sand beach, it's a pebble beach. So it was a little bit different when we were walking along the pebbles to get to the water. After checking out the beach, we walked over to the British Airways I-360 viewing tower.
This was a really beautiful experience because you're able to take in infinite views of the ocean and also the city of Brighton and beyond. After taking in those romantic views, we took a nice romantic walk through the lanes, and then shortly after that, we decided to check out the local nightlife, hit up spots like The Village, Bulldog, Queen's Arms, and then we capped off the night at Legends.
Legends, legends only, legends.
So the next morning, we took a trip over to Boyle Wine Estate. A lot of people may not know this, but there is a vibrant, although small, winemaking community in the UK. So we actually tried a couple of their varieties from reds, whites, and also some of their sparklings, and they also make a pretty badass gin. And then after the tastings, we took a tour of the entire estate, and we also got to see where they produce some of these amazing wines. Next up in line was the Eclectic Royal Pavilion, which was constructed by King George IV. So as we were walking around the garden areas outside of the Royal Pavilion, Barry and I totally had a call me by your name moment as we frolicked around in the grass. So right after we toured the Royal Pavilion, we went to the adjacent museum where we were able to really take in the history of Brighton's LGBTQ+ scene, including their original Pride celebration. The last thing that we got the chance to do in Brighton was check out the Brighton Palace Pier. This was an expansive area with roller coasters, food, arcades, some of the best fish and chips I ever had, and it was such a good time. This entire experience, we learned so much about the LGBTQ+ culture that's just showcased so brightly in both London and Brighton. Thank you so much for welcoming us with open arms, and on top of that, have the opportunity to perform in front of a whole new audience.
All in all, London's 50th anniversary of Pride was the perfect place to celebrate the return of Pride in all its glory. We have attended so many Prides before, but Pride in London and their 50th anniversary will always hold a special place in our hearts.
Thanks for joining us on this beautiful and iconic trip to Great Britain, and be sure to follow us and Out Traveler as we continue making it with pride. See you next time.